Make now a list of 2 or 3 of the most surprising teams in college football and a list of 2 or 3 of the most disappointing teams in college football, and not just the names, but maybe a reason why.
Well, I'll tell you, the most disappointing team in college football is Florida State.
Okay.
They were picked 10th to start the season. They were picked to go to the playoff, before it all started, and they couldn't be further away from that if they were trying to do this. Like, it's just that, by the way, Detroit's just broken this thing open in the top of the 8th.
That's too bad.
You know what? They were up 1-0, down 2-1, and they've scored 4 in the 8th. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but yeah, they're by far the most disappointing, and it's for a litany of reasons that would take too long to go into. For me, the most impressive team so far, Indiana. They're fantastic. I know that like everybody kind of expected them to be better because of Cam Ward, but they've still done it over and over again, and won a close game when they didn't play their best ball this week. But Miami is very impressive. I mean, like they're really, it's not just Cam Ward making an offense go. It is a pretty complete. Yeah, I think it's pretty because they just, if you watch them play the last couple years, like a lot of these same guys were on the team and they weren't coached very well, but like everybody's doing a better job this year, coaching staff on down.
Yeah, I think in terms of, what was it, most surprising in a good way and a bad way, basically?
Yeah.
The most surprising, yes, in a good way, and then the most, I guess you could say, Disappointing would be a better way to phrase the other part of it.
I mean, I'm going to keep mine pretty Big 12 specific because I think you can do that just with this own league. But the most surprising, BYU. I think they're a lot better than I expected. And I thought they'd be towards the lower part of the Big 12 just based on all the information that we had. But, don't discount Kalani Sitake's culture and having, some veteran players and just guys who connect well and a quarterback who is an upgrade from what you've had. So I think they've definitely been a surprise because I would not have picked them to like not make a bowl game or anything necessarily, but the fact that they're going to make it like by week 6, they're just going to win 6 in a row probably is not what I expected from them. So that's been a surprise in a good way. I get where Paul's coming from in Miami. Like everybody expects them, but it's like, do you actually go out and do it?
Yeah.
And like last year, no, they didn't. And this year, okay, Damian Martinez signs and Cam Ward signs, and Damian Martinez actually hasn't been that big of a deal. He was a much bigger player statistically at Oregon State these last couple of years, but they've been, I think they've just validated themselves, whereas previously they always get talked about and they don't necessarily live up to it, and right now they're living up to it and looking pretty good doing it. BYU's been a good surprise. Miami, not a surprise, but more validation. And Oklahoma's been a nice surprise to me, just in terms of just like a homer pick of, I thought they'd be pretty okay, but I didn't know if they could be good. And I think with what Hawkins has shown, they might be pretty good. Like with the defense and just with his ability to keep things interesting, they're not going to win the SEC. They're probably going to lose 2 or 3 more games, but they look totally different than when we were like Jackson Arnold, and that's all we talked about was Jackson Arnold. Like it's like they've got a brand new coat of paint, and I just find it really interesting moving forward to see what that looks like.
They were about to probably finish under 500.
Yeah, and
if
now
they
they're
lose
not.
at Auburn, but that's that Sooner magic that was there for 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, so it's just the Hawkins thing has changed my perception on them versus kind of not being all in on Jackson Arnold and thinking that was a little bit too much hype, and turns out like it was. So I definitely got the right read on that there. But yeah, I don't know that people are surprised per se by Oklahoma, having the record that they do. Most disappointing, Kansas is definitely on the top of the list with their start to the season. I'd say Oklahoma State as well. I thought Oklahoma State would be much further along than they appear to be right now, and I definitely didn't think Alan Bowman would show up, at least with his ugly side, nearly as much as he has in this first 6 weeks of the season. It just seems like that's flashed a little too often, the bad Alan Bowman. And so that's part of the reason. Also, no running game and shaky defense at times that they are where they are. But I definitely expected those two to be, and maybe they will be. Like Oklahoma State still has everything in front of them, basically. but and they could still win the Big 12 and all that, but definitely not where I thought they'd be when we were having an argument about how dare you have them at number 2 in the league.
Yeah.
Like, that was the conversation for at least a couple people in the summer, and it's like, shoot, they might be in the bottom 2 of the league with the rate that they're going right now. They won't be, but you know where I'm coming from with that. So, yeah, that's been surprising. KU taking as much of a step back, because even if you thought Kotelnicki would matter, and I did, I didn't think they'd be like 1-4 to start the season.
No,
not really having a whole lot of hope that that's going to be any different the rest of the way, because it's not like, we just got to get our quarterback. But no, he's been back. He's there, and he's not nearly what you thought he was. And bad news, Jason Bean ain't walking through that door like he did last year. So, yeah, I don't know that that's going to get any better for Oklahoma State. They still got a lot in front of them that I think they can bounce back. But obviously they've taken a couple of hits they weren't necessarily expecting this quickly.
So Hawkins gives you more belief.
More belief, more excitement. I just wasn't a big Jackson Arnold guy, not like from a film perspective. I just thought there was a lot of hype.
Oh, my God. It was and of
so
course there was the wrong story about the fact he pushed out Dillon Gabriel.
Yeah, and that wasn't necessarily true,
yeah.
As we would come to learn, because Brent Venables cleared the air on that Dillon Gabriel wanted to go back closer to home, and it worked out the way that it worked out, and they just so happened to have Jackson Arnold. So, okay, yeah, it works out for best for all parties. At least you thought so. And then Jackson Arnold's not nearly the player early on that you thought he might be. So I just felt like with Jackson Arnold, they were going on a downward slope. And now with Michael Hawkins, they're back to like more of an even keel. And there's even a little bit of a reason to believe they can trend up moving forward with what he provides. So, yeah, that's definitely changed my feel around the program versus the preseason. All
right, Indiana Rutgers.
Yeah, it was yours.
You could see them. Yeah. You could see that they have been building something. And Shiano at Rutgers, that's what he does. They're both undefeated. We mentioned that in that list of teams who have not been undefeated in a long, long time. They're also both. They're not winning like 14-11. These guys both can put up some points. Now they're undefeated. The Big Ten, they got some meat to it. They don't have the flash and the dash that the Pac-12 had last year, even though they've added some of those teams, because some of those teams are different, and they don't seem like they still get the marquee that the SEC gets. But they've kind of slowly but surely, I don't know if anyone's going to beat Ohio State. I haven't really watched Ohio State, but they've got a lot of teams right at that next level. Penn State's taking care of their business. I like what Indiana and Rutgers have done to get to this particular point, too. Hawkins, a freshman, what's good about him in Oklahoma is that he's about to play about to play Texas. Now, that's good or that could be bad, because Texas is so explosive and they really can get after you. But the fact that he got to play quite a bit against Auburn, to me, that sure doesn't hurt. Now, there have been freshman stories in the past of players in that game that have exploded. Marcus Dupree, Edwin Simmons, Adrian Peterson.
Caleb Williams.
Exactly. Those were usually running backs, but the Caleb Williams, when they came back in that game, which still to me, that was like, what were they doing? And they did. And he just kind of took over that game with his feet and also his arm. But that game's just coming around the corner.
Well, Oklahoma was out their top 5 receivers the other day.
I think it was even higher than that.
They were out their top 5 receivers.
Yep.
That's like half your scholarship chart, if not maybe a little bit less depending on the team. But, that's a lot of wide receivers and big-time players and guys you brought in to be big-time players that are just totally unavailable to you right now. So, given that they're working with that, his stats are, I don't think, ever going to be, like, super flashy necessarily. Maybe as he gets older and just gets way more comfortable, but at least early on it's going to be, like, some 200-ish yard type games probably with a touchdown or two, and then, whatever he's able to get on the ground. Obviously, it's a big part of his game and was against Auburn. But he's got a lot of ways to go. It's just that before he took over, they were staring at like 2-10 in the freaking mirror. And now I think they can go make a bowl game. And on top of that, I don't know what else they can do. I'm not expecting them to beat Texas, but at least there's some excitement and some belief of like, this guy can help us get the job done. The defense is obviously our strength. We get some guys healthy back. He's not going to turn the ball over like Jackson Arnold was doing all willy-nilly and costing us games. And so long as he can do that, just protect the football and play smart, I think he gives them a nice piece there at quarterback to, be happy about moving forward, and definitely a good change of pace from how the first month of the season was going.